Buckingham Palace has announced that Her Majesty has passed away at Balmoral, surrounded by the royal family. Well, here to tell us more is London Live's Head of News, Tanya Francis. Tanya, a sad day for the whole country.
It really is, Helena, an incredibly sad day after Buckingham Palace confirmed today, the 8th of September 2022, that the Queen of England has died. And as you mentioned there, she died at her home in Balmoral at the incredible age of 96, surrounded by her closest family. Her health sparked worry since just after midday today, when Buckingham Palace announced that she was under supervision by health professionals and had been made to feel comfortable. Well, the Queen, obviously hugely respected and loved figure, had her family dropping everything and flying up to be by her side at Balmoral, flying into Aberdeen Airport and making that 1-hour car journey up to the castle. This was really the first indication that perhaps the Queen's health had taken a turn and that there was real cause for concern for all of the family to go up there. Charles and Camilla, it's reported, were one of the first ones there. They were then joined by Prince William, who travelled up from the south, and we also saw the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, who happened to be in the UK for other engagements, also travelling up to be by her side. And that's when we first saw the urgency around all the family needing to be together there with the health officials to keep an eye on her. I can imagine heart-wrenching times to have quickly got up there, up to Aberdeen Airport, and then made that journey over to the castle. There was further indication that something might have gone wrong yesterday when she pulled out of the virtual Privy Council meeting, which had to be postponed. And then we saw that official statement coming from Buckingham Palace saying that she was being closely monitored. And it was at that point that we heard that doctors were understandably very worried, sadly, for what turned out to be all the right reasons. The short but informative statement then continued to say that the Queen remains comfortable and at Balmoral. Now, one thing to note, the reason that this statement was so significant is because historically the palace regard the Queen's health as a completely private matter and do not provide any sort of running commentary on the state of her health. So the fact that at such an early stage they released a statement on how she's doing when all of her family were not yet by her side was sadly a sign that things had taken a turn for the Queen.
Absolutely. Well, you know, were we expecting this? How had the Queen's health seemed in recent months?
Yeah, you make a good point, Helena. If we look back to sort of the really early indications, we can look back to sort of the end of last year when we began to see a decline or a change in her health. It was that overnight stay in hospital, the first time in years that she'd had to stay in hospital overnight. And since that point, we sort of saw a steady decline, not an immediate or a steep one, but in her health. A visit to Northern Ireland around about the end of October. She cancelled that very last minute. All of the officials that she was meant to meet were already there. And yeah, it was at that moment it was clear that there'd been a change in direction in terms of how she was feeling and how much she was able to do in terms of serving her duty. She then missed Remembrance Sunday, but if we look more recently, she was at the opening of the Elizabeth line of Crossrail, named after her, and we saw her receiving visitors at Windsor Castle, at Balmoral, you know, out in the grounds with her dogs. So I think in that sense, perhaps it is a surprise that it happened so quickly, but because the palace are so private when it comes to these matters, I don't think we necessarily completely always had a full picture of what the Queen's health was truly like. There was rumours and speculation around about the time when there was an update about her mobility, that perhaps there were further underlying health issues that she might also be struggling with, that perhaps they didn't feel was right to share with the general public. But that, again, is all speculation. It was a big year for her. She had her Platinum Jubilee celebrations, of which she had pulled out of many of those, again, perhaps indicating that we would come to today where she has sadly passed away. If we look at this week, on Tuesday, she used a walking stick to meet and greet our new Prime Minister Liz Truss, which was then followed by a visit from the outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson. I imagine a very busy and hectic day for the Queen. And it will have been in the days and hours after she will have attended those official meetings that she passed away at her home in Balmoral.
Well, let's look back to earlier today then. It was during the first Prime Minister's questions for Liz Truss when the news of the Queen's health first broke. How was that news received in the House of Commons?
Yes, it was today started off with a really busy political agenda, and we first heard of this turn in her health just after midday when Liz Truss was delivering the news front bench of the Commons about her first major policy intervention, which of course is around the energy crisis and the cost of living crisis. Previously the biggest talking point on the agenda, it quickly changed to the Queen's health, where the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, interrupted the speech of SNP Westminster leader Ian Blackford during the energy debate to tell MPs and update them. Let's just look back to that moment when that happened. Well, since that point, messages have come in not only from across the UK but across the world, messages of sadness, condolences, all with really fond memories of the incredible Queen that she was, celebrated and remembered worldwide. And I really think it's important to note, we just need to look back really at what an incredible life that she's lived. She was born on the 21st of April 1926. Here in London in Mayfair, and she had no idea that she would, live to the grand age of 96, and also see in her Platinum Jubilee, so celebrate her coronation, which happened on the 2nd of June in 1953, 70 years later. Just weeks ago, we saw her marking those 70 years of service to the people of the UK, of the United Kingdom. But she hasn't, she wasn't only a prominent and loved figure here in the UK, but around the world. Officials and governors and mayors and presidents from around the world, it was always on their agenda to come and meet the Queen and be hosted by her because of what an incredible woman she was. So her childhood saw her early years spent between her home in Piccadilly and White Lodge in Richmond Park. And if we look ahead to 1947, in November, that's when she married Prince Philip, Philip Mountbatten in Westminster at the age of 21, and gave birth to the first of 4 children. The next year, 1948, Prince Charles at Buckingham Palace, who is now first in line to the throne to take over now that the Queen has died. She then went on to have another 3 children, Princess Anne, Prince Edward and Prince Andrew, with her always being such a huge family figure, and that family has since grown, more children, grandchildren, for who the most part were all around her in her final moments.
An absolutely wonderful life and fantastic to look back on. It's such a sad day for everybody here, but just tell us now, what happens next? You mentioned there, of course, Prince Charles.
So today, the day that the Queen dies is now known as D-Day, and each day after that, leading up to her funeral, will be at D1, D2 and so on. And we should now begin to get official plans announced by the royal family of what will be happening for her funeral, which is expected to happen 10 days after she has died. So the UK Parliament will adjourn and the Prime Minister will make a speech. She will be the first of the officials to make a speech, with no one else being able to do so beforehand or comment on it. Flags will be flown at half-mast. The Minister for Defence will also arrange gun salutes that will take place at all saluting stations. We will observe a national minute's silence. And that's what we can expect now in the immediate wake of her death.